An old soldier takes his final breath in the rocky hill country of Ephraim. The dust of a 40-year wilderness march is long washed from his skin. We read it as a collection of Sunday school adventures starring underdog warriors who save the day. You probably know the highlights: laying a piece of sheared wool on the dry dirt to test the morning dew. He gathers a massive army, only to watch God deliberately strip his forces away until a mere 300 men remain, holding clay pitchers and burning torches in the dark. Gideon wins the war. The narrow pressure of Midian is broken, and the spaciousness of the land is restored. But the tragedy of Gideon is what he does with the open space. He takes the heavy gold earrings plundered from the dead bodies of the Midianites. He melts the gold down and crafts a sacred ephod, setting the glittering idol up in his hometown. And the ancient scribe notes with devastating brevity that all Israel whored after it, and it became a snare to his family. The man who cleared the physical land immediately polluted the spiritual atmosphere. The golden idol marks a terrifying tipping point in the downward spiral of the tribes. The next generation of saviors will not just be hesitant or fearful, they will be fundamentally corrupt. Tola rises to save the land. He judges for 23 years. PDs. Jair rises. He commands 30 sons riding 30 donkeys across 30 cities. He dies. The spiral accelerates. The dark pulls harder. The brief windows of peace grow shorter. The Philistines press from the west. The Ammonites crush from the east. A left-handed assassin, smuggling a concealed blade into a royal throne room. A woman holding court under a palm tree. The elders of Gilead panic. They look at their fractured militia. They need a warlord. They need a killer. They travel out to the desolate land of Tob. The wind bites at the barren rock. They are looking for a man named Jephthah. He is the son of a prostitute. His half-brothers drove him out of his father's house. He lives in the limestone caves, running with a syndicate of violent, empty men. He is a mercenary, a cartel boss in the ancient dirt. The elders stand in the dust and beg the outcast to lead their army. He negotiates. He forces them to swear he will be their permanent head. He secures his absolute power. Then, he marches out. The Spirit of God comes upon him. The text makes it clear that Yahweh is ready to deliver the victory. But Jephthah cannot rest in the promise. The Canaanite air has infected his lungs. The pagan worldview runs deep in his blood. He stands before battle and makes a blind, horrific vow. If you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace, I will offer it up for a burnt offering. This is the absolute bottom of the theological barrel. Yahweh does not ask for human blood. Yahweh explicitly commands against it. The vow is not an act of radical faith. It is the symptom of a thoroughly pagan mind. A terrified farmer shrinking behind a winepress. A long-haired strongman tearing a lion apart with his bare hands. Jephthah slaughters the Ammonite forces. The blood soaks the eastern plains. 20 cities fall under his blade. The heavy bronze swords drip. The warlord turns toward home. Covered in the ash and sweat of absolute victory, he walks up the dirt path to his house in Mizpah. The heavy wooden door swings open. He hears the high, sharp strike of a tambourine. He sees the flash of a dancing dress in the sunlight. His daughter runs out to meet him. She is his only child. The text shatters into raw, helpless grief. He tears his clothes until the fabric rips. He collapses into the dirt. The victorious warlord becomes a broken shell of a man. He blames her. He blames the circumstance. But he refuses to break his twisted oath. The judge who saved the nation from the fire feeds his own blood to the flames. Israel is safe from the Ammonite swords, but they are completely lost to themselves. The saviors are becoming indistinguishable from the monsters they fight, and the men who rise next will plunge the nation even further into the dark. We stand under the harsh fluorescent lights of a voting booth. We press a black pen against the sterile white paper of a corporate contract. We sit in the suffocating quiet of a living room, listening to a voice on a screen list out the latest global terrors. We think we are supposed to look at these 12 men and women and find pristine role models. The economic collapse. The cultural shift. We watch the heavy steel doors of institutions close, trusting that the people inside will somehow fix the chaos outside. It is incredibly easy to look back across 3 millennia at Jephthah, a cartel boss tearing his clothes in the dirt of ancient Canaan, and feel a sense of evolved superiority. We assume we have outgrown the primitive era of warlords and blind oaths. We do not build stone altars. We do not sacrifice our children to secure a military victory. But the human heart has not evolved. Only the vocabulary has changed. The modern idols do not demand burning ash. They demand our quiet complicity. We are a society terrified of the invading armies of our time. We fear financial ruin. We fear cultural irrelevance. We fear the loss of our security. And just like the elders of Gilead, walking out into the desolate, biting wind of Tob, we are constantly looking for a strong man to save us. We elevate leaders with toxic characters because they promise to fight our enemies. We idolize visionaries because they promise to build a utopian future. We place absolute faith in human structures, ignoring the deep moral fractures of the people running them. We make the vow. We tell ourselves that the ends justify the means. We compromise our ethics to secure the promotion. We look the other way when our preferred political faction strips the dignity from the vulnerable, as long as our side wins the battle. We think their military victories are the main point of the text. But if you look closer at the sheer volume of blood soaking into the soil, we sacrifice our integrity to win the culture war. This is the psychological mirror the Book of Judges holds up to the modern world. If you are exhausted by the endless cycle of placing your hope in human saviors, if you feel the heavy, hollow ache in your chest every time another leader falls, every time another institution fails, you are experiencing the exact exhaustion the text is designed to provoke. The book is actively destroying your faith in human capability. You are meant to look at the wreckage of these human warlords and realize that no man, no matter how gifted or strategic, can carry the weight of a nation's soul. But the biblical timeline is not done devolving. The spiral has not yet hit the bottom. As the years tick forward, the saviors stop even trying to fight the enemy. The next string of leaders will put down their weapons entirely. They will stop fighting for the people and start building monuments to their own vanity. The blood dries black on Jephthah's altar. The smoke clears. The screams fade into the eastern hills. The immediate Ammonite threat is neutralized, but the internal rot only accelerates. The next 3 judges do not wage epic wars. They do not deliver breathless speeches. They do not save anyone. Ibzan of Bethlehem takes power. He does not hold a heavy bronze sword. At the horrific choices these leaders make, at the way each successive generation plunges deeper into moral rot than the one before it, you start to realize he holds heavy gold cups. He does not build fortifications. He builds an empire of flesh. He sires 30 sons. He sires 30 daughters. He marries his daughters to foreign houses. He brings 30 foreign wives into his own house. It is a political syndicate. It is a calculated consolidation of absolute power. The weddings last for days. The sweet wine flows freely. The poor watch in silence from the dirt. He dies. Elon the Zebulonite steps up. 10 long years pass. The Canaanite sun beats down on the dry soil. No battles are fought. No enemies fall. The ancient text records absolutely nothing of his character or his deeds. He leaves no legacy of rescue. He leaves only a cold stone tomb in Aijalon. He dies. Abdon, the Pirathonite, takes the seat. The oppression begins to creep back in. The borders grow dangerous again. But Abdon does not train an army. He gathers 40 sons. He gathers 30 grandsons. They mount 70 donkeys. Donkeys are not common livestock. They are the ancient equivalents of luxury chariots. Hooves clatter aggressively on the cobblestone streets. Dust kicks up into the faces of the peasants. The royal procession rides through the open markets. The fine dyed linen flashes in the bright sunlight. The thick smell of expensive scented oils masks the scent of a rotting nation. These are not warlords fighting for a broken nation. The Sunday school version is a sanitized illusion. These are not stories of ultimate triumph. They are a diagnosis. They are aristocrats bleeding a dying people dry. The savior has become a parasite. The judge has become a king in all but name. They hoard the wealth. They hoard the women. They hoard the livestock. They do absolutely nothing to stop the creeping dark. Because while the 70 descendants of Abdon ride their donkeys, a massive shadow falls over the western plains. The Philistines are massing on the coast. They do not come as raiders to steal the autumn grain. They come as a permanent occupation force. They forge heavy iron weapons in their black, suffocating smithies. The hot sparks fly from the anvils. The heat radiates from the glowing coals. They march steadily into the Israelite valleys. They systematically disarm the population. They demand total submission. And Israel does not even cry out to God. In every previous turn of the spiral, the people felt the pain and screamed for rescue. Not this time. The spiritual nerve endings are completely dead. The idolatry has paralyzed them. They accept the heavy iron collar. They trade their freedom for a quiet slavery. They surrender completely to the dark. But God refuses to let the story end in silence. He bypasses the corrupt aristocrats. He ignores the wealthy families riding through the markets. He goes to a barren woman standing in a dusty field. He speaks a promise. He demands a strict Nazirite vow. No strong drink. The Book of Judges is not a catalog of champions. It is a terrifying autopsy of a nation trying to govern itself. No razor touching the scalp. Uter. Relentless separation. A child is born to fight a war the nation refuses to fight. A man who will carry the destructive force of a natural disaster in his bare hands. When you analyze the literary structure of the Book of Judges, the narrative suddenly slows to an agonizing, detailed crawl for its final champion. The ancient author devotes 4 entire chapters to one man, dedicating more textual real estate to him than almost all the other leaders combined. Modern culture has turned him into a cartoon, a muscular superhero with magical hair. But from a historical and theological perspective, the life of Samson is meant to evoke absolute horror. He is given every spiritual advantage a human being can possibly possess. He is announced by an angel before his conception. He is placed under a strict Nazirite vow from the womb, a sacred and visible designation meant to mark him as completely separated for the purposes of Yahweh. The vow is intensely physical, anchored in unyielding boundaries. He must never touch a dead corpse. He must never consume the fermented fruit of the vine. He must never let a sharp iron razor touch his scalp. Yet, as you track his movements through the Philistine territory, you watch him systematically and arrogantly dismantle every single boundary God placed around him. To feel the absolute dread of this 300-year period, you have to step into the suffocating power vacuum left behind in Canaan. He scoops sticky, golden honey out of the rotting, fly-blown ribcage of a dead lion. He travels to foreign vineyards and throws a massive drinking feast that lasts for 7 days. He relentlessly pursues the beds of Philistine women, eventually laying his heavy, matted head into the lap of Delilah, trading the sacred secret of his divine strength for a momentary intimacy. He is utterly driven by his own immediate, physical appetites. He never once gathers an army to liberate the tribes of Israel. He kills solely to avenge his personal grievances, settling petty, violent scores over stolen wives and burned clothing. Samson is not a righteous deliverer. He is a tragic mirror. The ancient scribe is using the horrific trajectory of this one warlord to diagnose the exact spiritual condition of the entire nation. Like Samson, Israel was miraculously born out of nothing. Like Samson, Israel was given a sacred covenant, explicitly separated from the surrounding pagan nations to be a holy instrument. And, exactly like Samson, Israel has completely given itself over to foreign altars and forbidden appetites, squandering its divine inheritance for the cheap thrill of cultural assimilation. The physical reality of his end is terrifying to consider. The Philistines finally capture him. They take searing hot iron and violently gouge out his corneas. They bind his wrists with thick, heavy bronze shackles. There is no earthly king. There is no standing army. There is no central capital. There is only a fragile alliance of 12 tribes scattered across foreign territory. They throw him into the damp, suffocating darkness of a Gaza prison, forcing him to walk in endless, exhausting circles, pushing a massive stone wheel to grind their grain. The chosen champion of God is reduced to a blind beast of burden, working in the dark to feed the enemies of Yahweh. He will ultimately bring the massive stone pillars of the Philistine temple crashing down, in a finale, suicidal display of divine power, crushing thousands under the rubble. But his death does not establish lasting peace. It does not initiate a spiritual revival. The thick dust of the collapsed temple settles on the coastline, and the nation is left completely leaderless. The downward spiral has finally scraped the bedrock. The flawed saviors are all dead, and the 12 tribes are left entirely to their own twisted devices. And the absolute depravity of what happens next, when every man becomes his own ultimate authority, will fracture the nation almost beyond repair. Samson dies. The heavy dust settles on the coast. No warlord rises from the dirt. No savior appears in the valleys. The leadership of the nation sits completely empty. Without a judge, the tribes descend into absolute madness. A Levite travels north through the hill country. A concubine is dragged into the pitch black of a Benjaminite street. She is abused until the morning light. She falls on a cold stone threshold. The heavy bronze sword that carved a path through Canaan rests against a stone wall. Joshua, the successor to Moses, the man who watched, surrounded by hostile empires who forge iron weapons, while Israel still works with soft bronze. And then, the rhythm begins. Her dying hands clutch the heavy wooden doorframe. A cold iron knife severs her flesh. 12 bloody pieces are sent via messenger across the scattered tribal borders. The shockwave hits the nation. The tribes gather at Mizpah. Heavy bronze swords leave their sheaths. Brother marches against brother. The Israelites besiege their own people. The city of Gibeah burns. Thick black smoke chokes the sky. The entire tribe of Benjamin is nearly erased from the earth. To replace the dead wives, young women are violently kidnapped from the vineyards of Shiloh while they dance in the festivals. The violence is utterly senseless. The moral collapse is total. Israel is now completely indistinguishable from the pagan nations they were sent to judge. The ancient scribe dips his reed pen into the black ink. He looks back at 300 years of carnage. He writes the final epitaph of the era. Judges chapter 21, verse 25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Look at the specific language of the text. The word translated as king here is the Hebrew melech. It stems from the root verb malach. It means to reign. It means to ascend to the throne. It means to hold absolute, sovereign counsel over a people. It appears over 2,000 times in the Old Testament. But its echo here points directly forward to 1 Samuel chapter 8, a suffocating, relentless cycle that will repeat itself again and again. Israel turns to the idols of the land. In that chapter, the elders will stand before the prophet Samuel. They will reject Yahweh's direct leadership. They will explicitly demand a melech, so they can be exactly like the Philistines and the Ammonites. That linguistic bridge changes everything about how you read the end of the bloody era. The final verse of Judges is not a desperate plea for a human monarch to come fix the chaos. It is the terrifying consequence of rejecting a divine one. When the throne of heaven is ignored, when every man becomes his own ultimate authority, the vulnerable are crushed in the streets. The stone thresholds run red. The nation inevitably devours itself. The relentless cycle of flawed saviors has finally exhausted its purpose. Israel does not need another left-handed assassin in a summer palace. Israel does not need another fearful farmer hiding in a wine press. Israel does not need another cartel boss making blind vows. Israel does not need another blind brute pushing a grinding wheel. Those broken men only bought temporary quiet. They never changed the human heart. The utter failure of the judges. and the gaping hole of the empty throne point beyond the dirt of ancient Canaan. They point to a true Melech. A left-handed assassin drew a hidden blade in a summer palace and bought a desperate nation peace. God hands them over to the violence of their enemies. The oppressors march in, stealing the autumn harvest, burning the wheat fields, demanding heavy tribute. A housewife drove a wooden peg through a sleeping general and broke the spine of an iron superpower. A terrified farmer blew a trumpet in the dark and shattered an enemy that was starving the land. A violent mercenary slaughtered the forces on the eastern plains and burned his only daughter on a tragic altar. The wealthy aristocrats paraded their donkeys through the markets and watched their people slip quietly into heavy chains. A blind champion pushed the stone pillars of a pagan temple down and crushed his enemies under the weight of his own failure. A fractured nation spent 300 years crowning broken warlords to prove that a human hand can never carry the weight of a human soul. 12 flawed saviors. 1 empty throne. 1 thread. 1 story. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the winepress. A terrified man hiding his harvest in a narrow stone pit. The dust of the crushed grain suffocating his lungs. He is convinced the enemy has taken every inch of open ground. He is shrinking into the absolute smallest version of himself just to survive the era, and God meets him exactly there. Not when he is brave, not when he is strong. The people scream out into the dark for a savior, and God, in his enduring mercy, raises someone up to break the yoke. God steps into the tightest, most restricted, claustrophobic space of a coward's life and speaks the word Yasha, rescue, spaciousness, room to breathe. If you are in a season where the walls feel like they are closing in, where you have placed your ultimate hope in a political leader, a financial system, or a human structure, only to watch it fracture and collapse, Judges is a place to sit. The disappointment you feel is not a failure of faith. It is the brutal, necessary realization of a truth. God is actively destroying your reliance on human warlords. He is showing you that a hollow crown cannot save you. The panic of a failing system is the exact environment where the true king begins his work. And may the God who can use a left-handed dagger and a wooden tent peg to break an empire meet you in your narrow place and bring you out into the wide, open spaces of his grace. Peace lasts for a generation. The Savior dies. The people immediately return to the idols. The wheel spins again. But the detail that changes how you read this violent spiral is the nature of the saviors themselves. The Hebrew word used to describe them is shaphat. We translate it into English as judge. But they do not wear black robes. They do not sit behind heavy oak desks holding wooden gavels. They are warlords. They are flawed, desperate, and often profoundly broken instruments. And the first 3 to rise from the dust will set a rhythm of bloodshed that will haunt the rest of the nation. The human memory is a terrifyingly fragile thing. We swear oaths that we will never forget the rescue. Never repeat the mistakes of our ancestors. The impregnable walls of Jericho collapse into a mountain of rubble. Is dead. And with his final exhale, an entire era dies with him. Never wander back into the dark. We build heavy stone monuments to ensure we remember. And then, a few decades pass. The monuments become background scenery. When you map the literary architecture of the Book of Judges, you find a specific rhythm that governs this human amnesia. Theologians often call it the cycle of apostasy. Rebellion, retribution, repentance, rescue. But the visual of a circle is misleading. You do not end up where you started. The pattern in Judges is not a circle. It is a descending spiral. With every turn, the moral condition of the nation drops deeper into the dark. The saviors God raises up become increasingly flawed. Their methods more brutal. Their character more compromised. The descent begins immediately after the very first judge. His name is Othniel. He is the nephew of Caleb, a man of pristine pedigree. The Hebrew text presents him as the golden standard, the unblemished baseline. The Spirit of Yahweh comes upon him. He goes out to war, and the land rests for 40 years. Clean, decisive, honorable. But that gold standard shatters by the very next generation. Because the second major judge is a man named Ehud. The text tells us he is from the tribe of Benjamin, a detail that carries a phonetic irony in Hebrew. Benjamin literally means son of the right hand. Yet the ancient scribe explicitly notes that Ehud is bound in his right hand, he is left-handed. This is not a random piece of trivia. A new generation rises in the quiet valleys of the Promised Land. They do not know the taste of manna melting on the tongue like frost. It is the tactical advantage of an assassin. Israel is suffocating under the weight of King Eglon of Moab. To pay the crushing tribute, Ehud travels to Eglon's summer palace. But beneath his cloak, strapped to his right thigh, were royal guards checking. For right-handed swordsmen would never think to feel rests, an 18-inch, double-edged iron blade. The narrative slows down to an excruciating, deliberate pace. Ehud secures a private audience. He whispers that he has a secret message from God. The corpulent king stands up in the heavy, humid heat of his upper room, and the son of the right hand reaches with his left. The Hebrew text lingers on the visceral, uncomfortable details. The cold iron sliding completely into the king's belly, the fat closing over the hilt, the locked doors, the thick, suffocating silence that follows as Ehud slips away through the porch. A few verses later, a man named Shamgar flashes across the page. He has no pedigree. He has no army. He simply stands in a field holding a wooden ox goad, a farming tool splintered and stained with the blood of 600 Philistines. You look at the left-handed assassin and the farmer with a stick, and a profound realization begins to emerge about the nature of the God orchestrating this era. God is not waiting for pristine vessels. They have never heard the deafening roar of the Red Sea tearing itself in half to make a dry path. He is actively exploiting the unconventional to preserve a people who do not deserve it. Ehud's hidden blade and Shamgar's crude wood buy the nation peace. But the quiet does not last. The spiral turns again, pulling the tribes further down into the dirt. And when the next invading empire rolls across the northern horizon with 900 chariots of iron, God does not call another solitary assassin. He calls a woman sitting under a palm tree, and a general who refuses to go to war without her. 900 chariots of iron roll across the northern valleys. Iron wheels crush dry stones. Hooves beat against the earth. Dust chokes the sky. The Canaanite general Sisera commands the absolute military supremacy of the ancient world. Iron against bronze. Speed against infantry. It is a massacre waiting to happen. Israel hides in the caves. The highways sit empty. Travelers walk through the dense brush to avoid the roads. Fear hangs thick in the air. But in the hill country of Ephraim, a woman sits under a palm tree. The palm leaves rustle in the dry wind. People stand in long lines. They bring her their disputes. They bring her their panic. Her name is Deborah. She is a prophetess. She is a judge. She sends a message to a military commander named Barak. The command is sharp. Gather 10,000 men. March to Mount Tabor. They have never felt the radiant heat of a pillar of fire warming their faces in the dead of a desert night. God will draw Sisera out. God will give Sisera into your hand. Barak hears the command. He feels the weight of the iron chariots. He looks at his bronze swords. He refuses to march alone. He tells Deborah he will only go if she stands beside him. Most readers mock Barak here. We assume he is a coward. We read this as a lack of faith. But look at the dirt. Look at the enemy. Barak is a man facing a mechanized army with a militia of farmers. He wants the presence of God. Deborah is the mouthpiece of Yahweh. He wants her in the camp. Deborah agrees to go. But she speaks a prophecy that shifts the entire legacy of the war. God will sell the great Canaanite general into the hands of a woman. The armies meet at the Kishon River. Sisera deploys the 900 iron chariots. The ground shakes. The heavy war machines accelerate. Then, the sky opens. Rain falls. It pours in violent sheets. The dry riverbed floods. The soil turns to thick, sucking mud. The iron wheels sink. The horses panic. The chariots freeze in the dirt. The 900 chariots are not a military advantage. They are an iron tomb. Israel rushes down the mountain. The Canaanite army shatters. Sisera abandons his paralyzed chariot. He runs on foot. He runs until his lungs burn. They know only the fertile soil. They know the green hills. And they know the gods of the people living just across the ridge. He seeks shelter in the tent of an ally. A woman named Jael invites him inside. She gives him warm milk. She covers him with a heavy rug. He falls into a dead sleep of absolute exhaustion. Jael does not wake him. She picks up a wooden tent peg. She picks up a heavy mallet. She steps silently to the sleeping general. She drives the peg through his temple and deep into the dirt. The war ends in a tent. God subverts every expectation of power. The ultimate military machine is defeated by mud. The ultimate enemy commander is defeated by a housewife with a camping tool. But as the mud dries and the blood washes away, the cycle spins again. The peace holds for 40 years, until the nation forgets. The next threat will not come from chariots. It will come from the east, starving the land to dust, forcing a terrified man to hide his harvest in a hole in the ground. We are a species uniquely wired to justify our own cowardice. When the world grows hostile, when resources vanish and enemies sweep across the horizon, the natural human instinct is to shrink, to hide, and to find a narrow crevice where the danger cannot reach us. Baal, Ashtoreth, deities of rain and grain and fertility. And so, the altars of Yahweh grow cold. Judges chapter 6 introduces a man paralyzed by this exact instinct. The Midianites are starving the nation of Israel. They move through the valleys like a swarm of locusts, stripping the wheat fields down to bare dirt and stealing the livestock. The historical context here is critical. The devastation is so absolute that the Israelites have abandoned their homes, carving out hidden dens and narrow strongholds in the jagged mountains just to survive. Against this backdrop of national claustrophobia, we find a man named Gideon threshing wheat. He is not out in the open field where the wind can catch the chaff. He is hiding inside a wine press, a narrow pit carved deep into solid limestone. The dust of the crushed grain suffocates the enclosed space. He is terrified, keeping his head below the stone rim so the raiding parties will not see him. And while he cowers in the dirt, a messenger from God appears and delivers a commission. Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. The word our English Bibles translate as save here is the Hebrew Yasha. It appears hundreds of times in the Old Testament, eventually forming the linguistic root for the names Joshua and centuries later, Jesus. But it's concrete. Physical etymology is breathtaking. The groves of the idols begin to burn with sweet incense. Most people assume the book of Judges is a gallery of heroes. The root of Yasha literally means to be spacious, to be wide open, or to be brought out of a narrow, restricting place. The physical environment of the Israelites perfectly mirrors their spiritual condition. The Midianites have forced them into caves, into tight ravines, and into cramped stone wine presses. When David uses this same Hebrew root in Psalm 118, the connection is visceral. He writes, "Out of my distress I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me in a broad place." The word for distress in that psalm literally means a tight squeeze. That spatial reality changes everything about what God is commanding Gideon to do. Salvation is not merely a military victory. It is the restoration of space to breathe. If something about this ancient picture of rescue is stirring up questions you have never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the terrified farmer begins the slow, halting work of obedience. He destroys his father's altar to Baal, but he does it under the heavy cover of night, because he is paralyzed by the fear of his own neighbors. He constantly demands signs from God,